correspondent for The Nation, John Rowley, Democratic strategist and president of Fletcher Rowley Media.
I think what's going on is we have a governor's race for Ohio going on, and Barack Obama and Mitt Romney are the candidates. I think if you're dead on in terms of they're focusing in on specific counties because, I mean, everyone's focused on Ohio, and I think to some degree candidates and people down at the county level in Ohio may have a better feel than some who are looking at polls, spending, and super PACs on the national level.
So, all right.
Well, in terms of advertising, those missiles have been launched, and what was going to happen has been decided weeks ago. And so I think that most candidates and both of these candidates are focused on two things. One, kind of filling in weak areas. So you see that with the new myth of the moderate Mitt, who's now emerged, and then Obama has released his plan, and then everything else is, in terms of what they're saying on the stump, I think is totally about base mobilization. Well, I think it plays everywhere, but also it's been part of the a slight economic comeback that's happening in Ohio. That's where some of the good economic news is. That's why the president's doing so well. And I think Mitt Romney's going to get so desperate in Ohio, I think he's going to put on an Ohio State jersey at any moment. It's just a matter of time. He will do anything, and I can see him ripping up a Wolverine jersey and putting on OSU.
Yeah, we're going to media consultant John Rowley.
Well, I think what the Republican Party is going to have to deal with long term is if you win with the Tea Party, you're going to lose with the Tea Party. And so I think whether we have huge short-term gains because of some of these appeals that are being made and some of these appeals that, frankly, are more out of the 50s or 60s than the decade we're in now, and we thought we'd moved past. I think over 10 years, the Republican Party's in big trouble. Demographics are destiny. And the demographics in terms of attitude, in terms of age, in terms of views on race and orientation have moved past them. And so I think that's a big problem, whether there are short-term gains with women, which I think there still will be, it's frankly, probably the worst thing that could happen to the Republican Party is if Mitt Romney wins, because then there'll be no reevaluation of the Tea Party's role within the Republican Party.
Correspondent for The Nation, John Rowley, Democratic strategist and president of Fletcher Rowley Media.
Well, the challenge with election reform, campaign finance reform, any sort of political reform is you usually need a big scandal and controversy to bring change. And even after the 2000 election, we didn't see a lot of reform and change. So hopefully we'll get some of the change on the front end, but then we'll bring some focus on the back end, because hopefully over the next few years, we're going to have some money mobilized to beat back some of these voter ID laws and other things. Otherwise, these legislatures controlled by Republicans, they're going to continue to do these things. I'm kind of reminded when I hear the Republicans talk about voter suppression of the old J.P. Morgan quote. He used to say, there are two reasons a man does something. The reason he says, and then there's the real reason. Well, I think part of the problem also is the local media in a lot of these races, they don't cover ballot measures like they cover the candidates. And so a lot of states, you're not sending out a voter guide from the election commissions and whatnot. So it takes time to read these things, and there's social pressure to get through the line and whatnot. And so, I mean, one thing that has changed.
That's an interesting point. If you're standing there in line, and you're trying to read legalese, and the people behind you are like, oh yeah,
absolutely. And I think there has been one shift. I think ballot measures were somewhat the dominion of the regressive right for a while in terms of no tax measures, Tabor, some other things. I think the progressive side of things is through the Ballot Initiatives Strategy Center and others. They're trying to push some progressive ideas, and some of those listed were not just from individual millionaires. Like the Michigan ballot measure is essentially bought and paid for by the Amway family, by Sherman Adelson in terms of the collective bargaining measure. So there are instances, but if there's not information out there, if through the media, through paid media, then you have smart people, informed people who are entirely not only undecided but uninformed as they make their decision. You ask, is it a good thing or a bad thing? And the answer is yes. I mean, and it also makes you wonder. We talked about election reform a little bit before, but I do think election reform, the venue for it may be ballot measure, because you've got to take election reform out of the hands of incumbents, Democrats or Republicans. I think most of the time incumbents don't want dramatic election reform.